A few weeks ago, I got a flyer in the mail for a crypto protocol called Hex.com, advertising what they say is the first blockchain certificate of deposit. Well, being the blockchain guy, I happen to know a little bit about blockchain myself. So I decided to investigate. What I found absolutely blew me away. Not only is this project huge with a market cap of over $19 billion, it seems like they've penetrated farther into the non-crypto world than any other scam that I've ever seen in crypto. And when I say scam, I'm not just talking about something that I consider a bad investment like Dogelon Mars. I'm talking about a protocol that was specifically designed as an unsustainable Ponzi scheme to price the pump early, to drive new users in, and then to have the price dump after all of these new users have locked up their money. What's more, the founder of Hex.com, Richard Heart, is exactly what you'd expect from a billionaire crypto con artist, but more. He's bought the world's largest diamond, has a watch collection worth over $5 million, and knows how to solve all the world's problems, from how to reduce military spending to how to cure a hangover. We know all of these things because he tells us all of these things on his website, which is linked from the front page of Hex.com. In this video, I'm going to outline why the economics of this project are doomed to fail. I'm going to expose why almost everything about this project, from its mailing address to its audits, are intentionally misleading. And we're going to talk about the shady history of its founder, Richard Heart. Or should I say Richard Schuler, which is actually his real name. If you enjoy learning about crypto, hit that subscribe button to join us on this Web3 journey. And if you want to prevent more people from falling into this scam, hit the like button for the YouTube algorithm. Before we get into how this scam actually works, let's take a few steps in the shoes of a potential new investor. And there are a lot of these potential new investors, because one thing that Hex is very clearly focusing on is onboarding new users, which makes sense because the founder was one of the first people successfully sued for spam in 2002. But more on that later. Today, Hex.com has a sponsored NASCAR car. They've been sending flyers in the mail to everyone, and they've been placing advertisements touting the Hex token's 11,500% price increase everywhere you can imagine, from subway stations to The Economist. So let's just say that you're a potential investor that gets one of these flyers advertising Hex.com in the mail. One subtle thing that you may notice is that the return address is at 99 Wall Street. Well, obviously, if a firm is selling a financial product and they have an address on Wall Street, they're probably legitimate, right? The only problem is a quick Google search shows that anybody, including you, can get a prestigious New York City office address at 99 Wall Street for just $19.98 a month. So obviously, this fake address on its own does not mean the project is a scam. But it does show us that everything is not as it seems with Hex, and that it may be worth diving a little deeper on their claims rather than taking them at face value. The next one of those claims is the actual specific product that they're offering, which is a certificate of deposit. Now, Wikipedia defines a certificate of deposit as a financial product commonly sold by banks and credit unions in the United States. They're different from savings accounts because you have to lock your money, but like savings accounts, they're insured by the FDIC for up to $250,000. In return for locking your money with the bank, they'll give you interest. The reason why they pay you interest is because they do what banks normally do with your money: lend it out to others. The yield or interest that you are getting from a traditional certificate of deposit is coming from the borrower that the bank turns around and lends your money to. When it comes to Hex.com's certificate of deposit, it's really not a CD at all, except the loosest, and I really mean the loosest interpretation of the word.
When you put your coat at a coat check, you get a receipt, which is a certificate of deposit. You deposited your coat at the coat check.
Obviously, when they use the word certificate of deposit, they know that investors are thinking of the very safe and secure investment that their local bank offers. But looking at the actual Hex.com product, that couldn't be farther from the truth. We'll get to how their certificate of deposit actually works in a minute, but first, let's take a look at one more of their half-truths that has cause for concern: their audits. When I was browsing Hex.com's website, I was very curious to learn about the supposed audits that they've had, both on the security of their smart contracts and financial audits on their protocol. The nice thing about audits by crypto security firms is that they're public and you could read them for yourself. After glancing through the security audits, there was nothing really of note there, but it's worth mentioning that security audits don't actually mean anything about whether or not the project is a scam. There are plenty of crypto scams out there that wouldn't trip up a security audit. Think about a slot machine at a casino. A security audit might assure you that the slot machine was working as intended, but that intended behavior is to take money out of your pocket. But if any kind of crypto savvy economist took a look at Hex.com, I would expect them to immediately write it off as a Ponzi scheme. So why exactly was a firm willing to put their name on a financial audit saying that Hex.com was okay? And the answer that we have to that is in the very first paragraph of the actual financial audit by CoinFabric. CoinFabric was only paid to audit a very specific economic mechanism within the Hex.com protocol. The audit says that, in particular, we were asked to verify that longer stakes pay better than shorter recompounding stakes. That's it. It's not evaluating Hex.com as an investment, nor is it trying to. They were specifically instructed to focus on this one tiny detail, which means nothing about the value of the Hex tokens or about the value of Hex as an investment. So why am I so convinced that this project is a scam? After all, if you go to their website, they have a section titled Scam ? Which clearly states Hex is not a scam. In order to understand why Hex is a scam, it's important to understand just a teeny tiny bit about economics beforehand. Let's just say that you're in a small village of 100 people that only has 10 ovens. These ovens are in high demand, and if you want to buy one, it'll cost you $1,000. Now let's say that everyone in the neighboring village, another 100 people, moved into your village but did not bring any ovens with them. While the new price of an oven will depend on a lot of different things, we know for certain that with a higher demand, the same supply, that the price of an oven will increase. This is exactly why Hex focuses so much on advertising and bringing new investors into the fold. Hex's founder has repeatedly said how important it is for existing Hex investors to go out and recruit new investors to come into Hex.com as an investment. The problem is that Hex has absolutely zero product to speak of. Unlike other more legitimate crypto protocols like decentralized exchanges or lending markets, the only reason to buy the Hex token in the first place is to hope that the price increases. The good news for Hex is at least for a little while, the price was increasing. That 11,500% was not a lie, but it's worth noting that this really isn't too hard to accomplish in the beginning stages of a protocol. When the market cap is low, the price can be manipulated relatively easily. The impressive thing about Hex isn't that they had this high price rise early, but that they were able to sustain it for so long. It certainly helps that the crypto markets in general were rising at this time, and more people have gotten interested in investing in crypto. But a big part of it was that they also spent an insane amount of money on these advertising campaigns. But advertising and crypto markets alone aren't enough to explain this historic run-up in price. We are missing one very important part of the equation, which is the supply. You see, the two things that you can do with a Hex token once you buy them is either hold them or stake them. Staking your token involves locking them into a smart contract for a set period of time, and in return for locking them, you'll get extra Hex tokens at the end of that lockup period. What this is really doing is incentivizing Hex investors to take a supply of Hex tokens off of the market. With a smaller circulating supply of Hex tokens, but the same demand, the price of Hex will rise. As the prices grow higher, even more investors become attracted to Hex. This creates a positive feedback loop, where the more tokens that get locked causes the price to go higher, which causes more tokens to get locked, which causes the price to go higher. This positive feedback loop is what has allowed the price of the Hex token to rise to such enormously high levels. This system has worked exactly as we would have expected for Hex. But there's one little problem. The staking mechanism that causes this positive feedback loop in the short run is by definition doomed to collapse in the long run. First of all, the rewards that are advertised for staking tokens are not actually rewards at all, but pure token inflation. This means that for every token being staked, rewards for that token are increasing the supply of Hex, causing the price to go down. So you're forced to hold HEX tokens in order to get more HEX tokens. But the increasing supply of these HEX tokens drives the overall price down, which means that the total value of the tokens that you hold plus the rewards doesn't even change. What's more, as these stakes expire, more and more of that locked supply is dumped back into the circulating supply on the market. This supply increase causes more downward pressure on the price. If the amount of new investors in HEX coming in isn't enough to counteract this increase in the supply, the price will start to fall, which is exactly what we've seen starting last November. Because the only reason that anybody wants to own HEX tokens in the first place is their value as an investment, it starts to become much, much harder to increase new investors to come in when they've seen just how poorly the price of HEX has done in the last few months. This is the reason why they're using a logarithmic scale instead of a normal scale on the chart on their website, because they're trying to hide the magnitude of the recent downturn in price. So there you have it. The economic model of HEX has played out exactly how we would have predicted from the beginning. And with schemes like this, once the price begins to fall, it becomes very, very hard to recover. If you are still on the fence about whether or not you want to invest in HEX, maybe the founder, Richard Heart, will be able to convince you. After all, he does have a lot of expensive clothes and watches, and he's nice enough to put the prices of all of them in every one of his Instagram posts. What's crazy to me is that all of his outfits are so ridiculously over the top, it's almost as if he's acting out some 10-year-old's fantasy of what a billionaire looks like. But that's kind of the point. He needs to be flashy in order to convince people that he's living the life. And he even said in an interview that he wouldn't be buying this stuff if it wasn't that people liked it so much. Although a few moments later in that same interview, he contradicts himself, saying that plebs like us don't like his fancy watches enough.
For fun, I went out wearing $3 million of watches. No one cared at all. I was like, man, what a waste. I'm taking all this risk for what? These people deserve nothing. It's like throwing pearls to swine.
But don't let the opulence fool you. Richard isn't even who he says he is. Richard Heart is not his real name. There's a great Twitter thread outlining Richard J. Schuler's past, including him being successfully sued for spam, but even more interestingly, about his dealings in Panama. Apparently, Richard J. Schuler was investigated by authorities in Panama for theft and extortion, and a lot of his alleged aliases were tied to a criminal network there. The amazing thing about this Hex.com story is that I didn't have time to cover a lot of the red flags that I discovered. My heart goes out to all the people who have or will lose their savings with HEX. And as always with projects like these, if any of my friends or family ask me if they should invest in it, I would tell them to run far, far away.